The alarm didn't sound. That was the first sign something was terribly wrong. Guard captain. Marcus Reed stood in the shadows of the tower of London's jewel house, his breath forming small clouds in the cold March air. It was 2:47 a.m. The sensors should have triggered. The vault door should have been locked. But there it was, slightly ajar, a thin line of darkness cutting through the reinforced steel. His hand moved to his radio, then stopped. Someone on the inside knew the codes. Someone had disabled the systems. Someone he trusted. Marcus had served the crown for 17 years. He'd protected dignitaries, stood watch during state funerals, and trained hundreds of young guards in the ancient traditions of royal security. But nothing prepared him for this moment, for the sickening realization that one of his own had betrayed everything they swore to protect. He pressed himself against the cold stone wall, listening. A faint scraping sound echoed from within the vault. Metal on metal, careful, deliberate, professional. The Queen's jewels had survived wars, revolutions, and centuries of threats. They represented more than wealth. They were symbols of a nation's history, worn by monarchs at coronations, held in trust for generations, yet unborn. And tonight, someone was trying to steal them. Marcus's mind raced through the duty roster. Only 4 people had access to this level tonight. Jenkins, 23 years of service, absolutely loyal. Patterson, former military, decorated for valor. Chen, brilliant with technology, the youngest supervisor they'd ever promoted. And Walsh, who'd just returned from family leave 3 weeks ago. One of them was inside that vault right now, if you want to see how this incredible, true story unfolds. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Marcus took a slow breath and moved forward. Each footstep measured, silent. The corridor stretched before him like a throat swallowing light. Security cameras hung useless, their red recording lights dark, disabled. From the inside, his radio crackled softly. Captain Reed, status check. He couldn't answer. Not yet. If he called it in now, the thief would run. Protocols would kick in. Lockdowns would engage. But the traitor might escape in the chaos, might have planned for exactly that scenario. No, Marcus needed to see the face. Needed to know who had sold their honor. Who had looked him in the eye every morning briefing while planning this betrayal. The vault door swung wider as he approached. Golden lights spilled out, warm and obscene against the darkness. Someone had brought their own lighting equipment. This wasn't a desperate amateur. This was calculated, planned. Marcus stepped into the doorway. A figure in a guard's uniform crouched before the imperial state crown. Gloved hands reaching toward the 317-carat diamond that had watched over Britain since 1905. The figure's back was turned, focused entirely on the delicate work of disconnecting alarm wires. "Step away from the crown," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. The figure froze. Shoulders tensed. Then slowly, so slowly, began to turn around. Marcus's world tilted. The face that looked back at him belonged to someone he'd trusted with his life. Someone who'd saved him during a riot 5 years ago. Someone who'd been at his daughter's wedding. "Hello, Marcus," the traitor said softly. "I was hoping it wouldn't be you who found me." Asterisk. Lieutenant Sarah Walsh stood up slowly, the portable light casting harsh shadows across her face. Marcus had known her for 8 years. She'd been at his side during the toughest assignments. She'd helped him reform training procedures after a security breach. She'd cried at his promotion ceremony. "Sarah," he whispered, the name catching in his throat like broken glass. "I need you to let me walk out of here," she said, her voice calm but her hands shaking. "I have a daughter, Marcus." "You remember Emily? She's sick?" Marcus's weapon remained holstered, but his hand rested on it. "Put down whatever you're holding. Step away from the crown." "We can talk about this," Sarah laughed, a broken sound. "Talk? There's nothing to talk about. Emily has leukemia. The experimental treatment isn't covered. I've sold everything. Borrowed from everyone. It's not enough. It's never enough." Tears streaked down her face, but her voice stayed hard. Do you know what these jewels are worth? Just one stone. Just this one diamond could save my daughter's life. So you betray your oath? Marcus took a step forward. You know, I can't let you do this. Your daughter is healthy. Your wife is alive. You don't understand what it's like to watch your child dying. Just know that money, just money, is the only thing between her and a future. I've disabled every camera, every sensor. I've created a ghost protocol. No one will ever know what happened here. You could look away, Marcus. Just this once. Just for 5 minutes. Marcus felt the weight of her words. He'd met Emily, a bright 10-year-old who wanted to be a veterinarian. He'd seen Sarah's exhaustion these past months, the way she'd taken every extra shift, every overtime opportunity. He'd thought she was just dedicated. How much do they owe you? Marcus asked quietly. 3 million pounds, Sarah said. The buyers are waiting outside the grounds. They've promised the money will be wired directly to the hospital tonight. Emily starts treatment tomorrow morning, or she doesn't. Those are the choices. The imperial state crown gleamed between them, its jewels catching the light. Sapphires the size of eggs. Diamonds that had witnessed the coronation of queens and kings. History compressed into metal and stone. Who are the buyers? Marcus asked, buying time, trying to think. Does it matter? Sarah's jaw tightened. They're collectors, private. They'll never display these pieces. No one will know they're gone until the morning exhibition. I'll be on a plane by then. You'll be a fugitive. Emily will grow up visiting you in prison. Emily will grow up. That's all that matters. Sarah pulled something from her pocket. A small electronic device. This is a signal jammer. When I press this button, it'll fry every piece of electronic equipment in a half-mile radius. Backup power, everything. You'll be blind. I'll walk out in the chaos. Marcus's mind calculated angles, distances, consequences. He was faster. He could disarm her. But Sarah knew that too. She'd trained with him. She knew every move he'd make. They have you on camera, Marcus said. Outside the grounds, maybe, but somewhere. These buyers, they'll have leverage over you forever. You'll never be free. I don't care about freedom. I care about Emily. The radio crackled again. Captain Reed, we're showing unusual electromagnetic readings near the jewel house. Please respond. Sarah's finger moved toward the button. Last chance, Marcus. Walk away. Tell them you checked it out, found nothing. I'll be gone in 2 minutes. No one has to know. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. The dark circles under her eyes. The desperate hope warring with shame in her expression. The trembling hands of a woman who'd already made her choice but was praying for someone to stop her. I know what you're going through, Marcus said softly. But there's another way, there isn't. I've tried everything. Give me 48 hours. Don't do this tonight. Let me help you. I have contacts, resources. The Guard has emergency funds. We take care of our own. Sarah shook her head. I'm out of time. Emily's out of time. The treatment has to start this week, or the cancer spreads to her brain. Do you understand? This week, her finger hovered over the button. Marcus's hand moved to his weapon. Two people who'd protected each other, now facing off over treasures neither of them cared about, while a little girl's life hung in the balance. Don't make me stop you, Marcus whispered. Don't make me do this to you, Sarah replied, her voice breaking. Please, Marcus. Just look away. The moment stretched between them like a wire pulled tight, ready to snap. Marcus's radio crackled again, louder this time. Captain Reed, we have multiple units converging on your location. Respond immediately, or we're coming in. Sarah's eyes widened. You called them. I didn't. But someone saw something. Maybe your buyers got impatient. Maybe you missed a camera. Marcus raised his hand slowly, showing he wasn't reaching for his weapon. Sarah, it's over. Let me help you surrender. Let me testify about Emily, about the circumstances. A judge will understand. No judge will let a thief walk free. I'll lose Emily anyway. Sarah's finger pressed down on the button. Nothing happened. She pressed again. Again, her face went white. What did you do? I didn't do anything, Marcus said, confused. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Multiple sets, coming fast down the corridor. But they weren't the heavy boots of guards. They were lighter, quicker. 3 figures emerged from the shadows behind Sarah, dressed in black tactical gear. Not police, not guards. Private security, or something worse. One of them pulled off his mask, revealing a weathered face with cold, calculating eyes. Lieutenant Walsh, the man said with a slight accent. Russian, maybe Eastern European? You were taking too long. We agreed on a timeline. Sarah spun around, her back now to Marcus. You weren't supposed to come in? The plan was to wait outside. Plans change. The man gestured to his companions. Especially when we realized you couldn't go through with it. You've been standing here talking for 5 minutes? We've been listening. Marcus's hand moved to his weapon, but the second figure already had a gun pointed at him. Professional, military trained. These weren't art collectors. They were something far more dangerous. Take the crown, the leader ordered his team. And the sovereign's scepter. We only need 2 pieces to make the payment. Payment? Sarah's voice rose. You said you were collectors. You said this was a private sale? The man smiled, and it was the cruelest expression Marcus had ever seen. We lied. These jewels are collateral for a very different transaction. Geopolitical, you might say. Your daughter's treatment is just a convenient motivation. Marcus saw it then. The bigger picture. This wasn't about money. It was about embarrassing the crown, about proving that Britain's most sacred treasures could be stolen, about creating an international incident. Sarah had been manipulated, her desperation weaponized by people who understood exactly how to exploit a mother's love. You said Emily would get treatment, Sarah said, her voice small now, childlike. You promised. And she will. After we have what we came for, after you've served your purpose. The leader nodded to the gunman. Keep the captain quiet. Kill him if he moves. Sarah turned to Marcus, realization dawning in her eyes. Horror, shame, rage. They showed me videos of Emily at her school. They knew her schedule. They knew everything. They said, if I didn't help them, she'd have an accident. Sarah wasn't just a desperate mother. She was a hostage. The alarm will sound, Marcus said, addressing the leader. You disabled the vault systems, but there are backups. Protocols Sarah doesn't know about. You know about all the protocols, the man replied. We've been planning this for 2 years. We have people inside MI5, inside the Metropolitan Police. Do you really think your radio calls are reaching anyone? We've isolated this entire section of the tower. As far as anyone knows, everything is normal. The radio on Marcus's belt crackled, but the voice that came through wasn't his supervisor. It was distorted, mechanical. Captain Reed, return to your post. False alarm. Marcus's blood went cold. They'd hacked the communications network. The other guards would think everything was fine. No one was coming. The leader's companions moved past Sarah, reaching for the crown. She stood frozen, caught between the life she'd tried to save and the betrayal she'd enabled. One of the men produced a specialized case, foam-lined and fitted with individual compartments. Don't touch it, Sarah said suddenly, her voice finding strength. You're not taking these jewels. The leader laughed. You're going to stop us? You who disabled the security to let us in? I disabled it. I can reactivate it. Sarah pulled something else from her pocket. A keycard. A master override. Every system in this building will scream. Every door will lock. You'll be trapped, and we'll kill the captain. And we'll kill you. And when we leave, we'll visit Emily at St. Mary's Hospital, room 304. Do you understand what I'm saying, Lieutenant? Sarah's hand shook. The keycard trembled between her fingers. Marcus could see her breaking piece by piece, the impossible weight of the choice crushing her. Sarah, Marcus said quietly, look at me. She turned, tears streaming down her face. Whatever happens next, Marcus said, Emily needs her mother. Not a thief. Not a traitor. Her mother. The woman who taught her right from wrong. That woman is still in there. Sarah looked at the crown, at the armed men, at Marcus, at the keycard in her hand. The weight of history pressed down on that moment. Centuries of tradition, a daughter's life. Honor and desperation balanced on a knife's edge. She closed her eyes, made her choice, and everything exploded into chaos. Sarah slammed the keycard against the wall panel. Sirens erupted instantly, deafening in the enclosed vault space. Red lights flooded the corridor. Steel barriers dropped from the ceiling with mechanical thunder, sealing exits. The alarm wasn't just local, it was a full crown jewels breach protocol. The kind that would wake the entire security apparatus of London. The leader's expression transformed from confidence to fury in a heartbeat. "You stupid woman." His gun swung toward Sarah, but Marcus was already moving. 17 years of training condensed into pure instinct. He lunged forward, catching the gunman's arm as the shot fired, the bullet sparking off stone inches from Sarah's head. They went down together, grappling on the floor. Sarah grabbed the crown case, yanking it away from the second thief. He reached for her, but she swung the case like a weapon, metal connecting with his temple. He staggered back. The third man pulled his gun. But the barriers had created confusion, shadows and flashing lights making targets uncertain. He fired once, twice, bullets ricocheting in the confined space. Sarah dove behind a display pedestal, clutching the case to her chest. Marcus drove his elbow into the gunman's throat, a brutal strike that left the man gasping. He ripped the weapon away and rolled, coming up in a crouch, aiming at the leader. "Drop it," Marcus shouted over the sirens. The leader had his gun pressed against the back of Sarah's head. She'd moved wrong, gotten caught. The crown case lay at her feet where she'd dropped it. "Lower your weapon, Captain, or I paint this vault with her brain." Marcus's hands stayed steady, but his mind raced. Help was coming. The protocol would alert every guard in the tower, every police unit within a mile. But minutes mattered. Sarah didn't have minutes. "You can't escape," Marcus said. "The barriers are steel reinforced. The doors are sealed. You're trapped. Then we all die together," the leader replied. "Is that what you want? Is that what her daughter wants?" Sarah's eyes met Marcus's. She mouthed two words, "I'm sorry." Then she dropped straight down, her knees buckling like a controlled fall, training taking over in her moment of terror. The gun barrel passed through empty air where her head had been. Marcus fired. The shot caught the leader in the shoulder, spinning him around. He stumbled backward, his gun clattering to the floor. Sarah scrambled away, and Marcus was there pulling her behind him. Weapon trained on all three intruders. The man Marcus had disarmed was still on the ground, clutching his throat. The one Sarah had struck was bleeding from his head, dazed. The leader pressed his hand against his shoulder wound, blood seeping between his fingers. "It's over," Marcus said. The leader laughed, a wet, painful sound. "You think this is over? You have no idea what you've interrupted. The people I work for don't forgive failure. They don't forgive witnesses. Then you better pray we protect you well in prison," Marcus replied. Heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor. Voices shouting commands. The cavalry had arrived. Marcus lowered his weapon slightly, relief flooding through him. That's when he saw it. The leader's other hand moving to his belt. Not for a weapon. For something smaller. A trigger. "Sarah, run," Marcus shouted. The explosion wasn't large, but in the confined vault space, it was devastating. A shaped charge designed to create chaos, not kill. Smoke filled the air, thick and acrid. The lights went out completely, emergency systems overwhelmed. Marcus felt the shockwave knock him backward, his ears ringing, his weapon flying from his hand. Darkness, chaos, choking smoke. He crawled forward, hand searching for Sarah. "Sarah?" Walsh, a hand grabbed his. Her voice, coughing. "Here, I'm here." He pulled her toward where he remembered the entrance being. But the smoke was disorienting, the explosions had shifted things. His fingers found wall, then found a body. One of the thieves, unconscious or dead, flashlight beams cut through the smoke. The backup team had arrived. Someone grabbed Marcus, pulling him out into the corridor. Someone else carried Sarah. Fresh air hit his lungs like a blessing. He doubled over, coughing, his vision clearing slowly. Guards surrounded them, weapons drawn, scanning for threats. Captain Reed. Jenkins, his second in command, was there, helping him stand. "Are you injured?" The intruders, Marcus gasped. 3 men. In the vault. Armed. "We're extracting them now. Medics are on the way." Jenkins looked at Sarah, who sat against the wall, her face black with smoke. "Lieutenant Walsh, you want to tell me what the hell happened here?" Sarah looked up at him, then at Marcus. Her eyes were empty, defeated. She'd made her choice. She'd activated the alarm. She'd saved the crown jewels. But in doing so, she'd confessed to everything. "I let them in," she said quietly. "I disabled the security. I was going to help them steal the crown." Jenkins's expression hardened. "You're under arrest, Lieutenant." "Wait," Marcus said, finding his voice. "There's more to this." She was coerced. They threatened her daughter. "That's for the investigation to determine," Jenkins replied, but his voice was gentler. He'd known Sarah too. They all had. 2 medics arrived, checking Marcus for injuries. He had cuts, bruises, his ears still rang from the explosion, but nothing serious. They moved to Sarah next, but she waved them away. From inside the vault, guards emerged, carrying the 3 intruders. The leader was conscious, blood-soaked, his cold eyes finding Sarah even as they restrained him. "Tell Emily I said goodbye," he called out, his accent thick now, his professionalism dropped. "Tell her we'll see her soon." Sarah lunged forward, but guards held her back. "You stay away from my daughter. You promised treatment." "I promised nothing," the man said, smiling through his pain. "Your daughter dies. You go to prison. The crown keeps its pretty stones. Everyone loses except me, because even in prison, I'll know I scared you all. I proved you're not untouchable." Marcus stepped forward, his voice ice. "The only thing you proved is that you failed. The jewels are secure. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell. And Sarah's daughter will get her treatment, because I'm going to make sure of it." The leader's smile faded. "You can't save everyone, Captain." "Maybe not," Marcus replied. "But I can try. That's the difference between you and me." They dragged the intruders away. The vault was being secured, evidence collected, statements prepared. The night was far from over. Sarah sat with her head in her hands. "What happens now?" she whispered. Marcus crouched beside her. "Now we tell the truth, all of it, and then we fight like hell for Emily." The interrogation room was small, windowless, lit by fluorescent lights that made everything look sickly and pale. Sarah sat across from 2 investigators from MI5, her hands cuffed to the table, still wearing her smoke-stained uniform. Marcus stood in the corner, no longer her captain, now her witness. "Start from the beginning," the lead investigator said, her voice clipped and professional. "How did they first make contact?" Sarah took a shaky breath. 6 weeks ago. I was leaving the hospital after visiting Emily. A man approached me in the parking garage. He knew her name, knew her diagnosis, knew exactly how much the treatment would cost. Did he identify himself? No name, just said he represented people who could help, people who needed something in return. Sarah's voice cracked. I told him no. I walked away. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't, the second investigator said. They sent photos to my phone. Emily at school. Emily at the hospital. Emily playing in our backyard. Different angles. Different days. They'd been watching her for weeks, maybe months. The message was clear: they could reach her whenever they wanted. Marcus closed his eyes. He'd seen this before, in counterterrorism briefings. Predatory recruitment. Find the weakness, exploit it, turn a good person into an asset. Sarah had been targeted because she was vulnerable and had access. What did they want initially? The lead investigator asked. Information. Security protocols. Shift schedules. Camera blind spots. They said if I cooperated, they'd pay for Emily's treatment. If I did... double quotes, Sarah couldn't finish the sentence. Did you report this to anyone? Sarah shook her head, shame washing over her face. I should have. I know I should have. But they said they had someone inside the security services. They said if I reported it, they'd know immediately. And Emily would pay the price. Ah! The investigator made notes. When did the plan change from information to active theft? 2 weeks ago. They said the information wasn't enough. They needed me to disable the vault security, create a window for them to enter. I refused. They sent me a video. What kind of video? Marcus asked, speaking for the first time. Sarah looked at him, her eyes haunted. Emily being picked up from school by a stranger? A woman pretending to be a family friend. They took her to a park, bought her ice cream, and brought her back. Emily thought it was nice. She had no idea. But the message to me was clear. We can take her any time. The room fell silent. Even the hardened MI5 investigators looked uncomfortable. This wasn't just coercion. This was psychological torture. Tell us about tonight, the lead investigator said. Walk us through every detail. Sarah described it all. How she'd been given the signal jammer, told it would disable electronics for the escape. How she'd been instructed to open the vault at exactly 2:45 a.m. How she'd believed they were private. Collectors who would simply sell the jewels and disappear. When did you realize they weren't collectors? The investigator asked. When they came into the vault? When I heard their leader speak, the way he moved, the way he commanded his men, that wasn't a civilian. That was military. Special forces, maybe. And the accent. Sarah looked up. He was Russian, wasn't he? The investigators exchanged glances. We can't confirm that at this time. But Marcus knew. He'd heard the briefings about state-sponsored actors, about nations looking to embarrass Western institutions, about hybrid warfare that used theft and terrorism instead of conventional military action. Sarah hadn't just been recruited by criminals. She'd been recruited by a foreign intelligence service. Why did you activate the alarm? The second investigator asked. You had the chance to let them take the jewels. You could have claimed you knew nothing. But you triggered the protocol that exposed you. Sarah was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Captain Reed asked me who Emily needed me to be. A thief or her mother? And I realized that if I let them take those jewels, I'd be teaching her that fear is stronger than honor. That when things get hard, you abandon everything you believe in. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I've already failed her in so many ways. I've worked too much, been absent too much, been too tired to be the mother she deserves. But I couldn't fail her in this. I couldn't let her grow up thinking that betraying everything you stand for is acceptable if you're scared enough. Even though it meant prison? The investigator asked. Even though it meant losing her anyway? Especially then, Sarah said. Because at least in prison, I can tell her the truth. I can tell her that when I had to choose, I chose right. Even if it was too late. Even if I'd already done wrong. At the final moment, I chose right. The lead investigator closed her notebook. Lieutenant Walsh will be charged with conspiracy to commit theft, dereliction of duty, and compromising national security. The Crown Prosecution Service will determine the final charges. Given the circumstances, there may be some leniency, but you will serve time. Sarah nodded. She'd known this was coming. However, the investigator continued, your cooperation tonight prevented a significant international incident. The men we captured are being interrogated. If your testimony helps us dismantle their network, that will be taken into account during sentencing. I'll tell you everything I know, Sarah said immediately. Every contact, every meeting, every threat. I want them destroyed. I want them to never be able to do this to anyone else. Marcus stepped forward. What about Emily? What about her treatment? The investigator's expression softened slightly. That's not our jurisdiction. But there are organizations, charities, funds for families of service members in crisis. Someone will reach out. It's not good enough, Marcus said firmly. She needs treatment this week. We need a commitment now, Captain Reed. I'm making this my personal responsibility, Marcus interrupted. The guard takes care of its own. Even when one of us falls. Especially then. I'm going to my superiors, to the Crown's charitable foundations, to every resource I can access. Emily Walsh will get her treatment. Sarah looked up at him, disbelief and desperate hope warring in her expression. Why would you do that? After what I did? Marcus met her eyes. Because you're right. Emily needs her mother. And because 17 years ago, someone gave me a second chance when I made a mistake. It didn't cost them the crown jewels, but it cost them something. And they helped me anyway. That's what honor means. Not perfection. Redemption. The investigator stood. We'll continue this tomorrow. Lieutenant Walsh, you'll be transferred to a secure facility. You'll have limited visitation rights, but you can see your daughter before the trial. As guards came to escort Sarah away, she stopped beside Marcus. Thank you, she whispered. For not looking away? For stopping me when I couldn't stop myself? Thank Emily, Marcus replied. She saved you before you even knew it. Because you couldn't bear the thought of disappointing her. Sarah was led away, the door closing behind her with a final, echoing click. Marcus was left alone with the investigators. You're a good man, Captain Reed, the lead investigator said. But you need to understand, Avon. If Lieutenant Walsh's daughter gets treatment, even if she cooperates fully, she's still going to prison. Probably for years. I know, Marcus said. But she'll go to prison as someone who stood up at the end. Not as a traitor. There's a difference. Is there? The investigator asked. To the courts? To the crown? Marcus thought of the imperial state crown, sitting in its vault, undamaged, secure. He thought of the centuries it represented, the weight of tradition and duty. And he thought of a 10-year-old girl who just wanted her mother. Yes, he said finally, there is. 3 months later, Marcus stood in a hospital corridor, holding a small teddy bear wearing a tiny guard's uniform. The kind gift shops sell to tourists. The kind that makes children smile. Emily Walsh's room was at the end of the hall, room 304, the same room the Russian operative had mentioned. The threat that had hung over Sarah like a sword, but today there were no threats. Only hope. Marcus knocked softly and entered. Emily sat up in bed, her head covered by a colorful scarf, her face thin, but her eyes bright. Sarah sat beside her, handcuffed to a guard who stood respectfully at a distance. They'd allowed this visit under strict supervision. 3 hours. That's all Sarah got before returning to prison. Captain Reed? Emily's face lit up. Sarah had shown her pictures, told her stories, made sure her daughter knew the man who'd saved her mother from herself. Hello, Emily? Marcus handed her the bear. I thought you might like a friend who knows about duty and honor. Emily hugged the bear tight, then looked up at him with startling seriousness for a 10-year-old. Mummy says you're a hero. She says you gave her a chance to be brave. Marcus glanced at Sarah, who smiled through tears. Your mummy is the brave one. She made a very hard choice. She chose right, Emily said simply. Even though it was scary? That's what brave means, doesn't it? Yes, Marcus said, his throat tight. That's exactly what it means. The treatment was working. The experimental therapy that cost £3 million was being funded by a combination of Crown charitable foundations, veteran support organizations, and private donations from guards who'd served with Sarah. Marcus had called in every favor, leveraged every connection, and personally contributed 3 months' salary. The doctors said Emily's prognosis was good. Not guaranteed, never guaranteed with cancer, but good. She'd need ongoing treatment for another year, but the leukemia was responding. She had a future. Sarah would spend 5 years in prison. The court had been lenient given the coercion, her cooperation with intelligence services, and her ultimate choice to stop the theft. 5 years instead of 20. She'd miss Emily's teenage years, her graduation, her first dance, but she'd be alive to see her daughter grow up. And Emily would know her mother chose honor. Can I talk to you outside? Sarah asked Marcus quietly. The guard approved it. They stepped into the hallway, still connected by the handcuffs, but given a moment of privacy. Caught the network, Sarah said. The investigators told me this morning, 17 people across 6 countries, all because I could identify the meeting locations, the protocols they used. They won't be threatening any more families. That's good, Marcus said. Marcus, I need to say something. Sarah looked at him directly. I know what I did was unforgivable. I compromised everything we stand for. I put the crown jewels at risk. I betrayed you, betrayed Jenkins, betrayed everyone who trusted me. Yes, Marcus said simply. He wouldn't lie to her. Wouldn't diminish what she'd done. She fought for Emily anyway. You fought for me, even after everything. Why? Marcus considered the question. He thought about his 17 years of service, about the oath he'd taken, about what it meant to protect something greater than yourself. Because that's the difference between their side and ours, he said finally. They weaponize love. They turn our strongest feelings into tools for destruction. If we respond by abandoning people who were hurt by that, if we refuse to show compassion, then we're letting them win. We're letting them prove that honor is just a word we use when it's convenient. Sarah wiped her eyes. I'm going to spend every day of the next 5 years trying to be worthy of this second chance. Emily's going to visit me. We're going to have a relationship, even if it's through glass. And when I get out, I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that what I did at the end choosing right wasn't a fluke. It was who I really am. That's why I fought for you. They returned to Emily's room. The little girl was showing the guard her stuffed bear, explaining very seriously that it was now officially part of the Queen's Guard and needed to be treated with respect. Marcus stayed for another hour, watching Sarah treasure every moment with her daughter, watching Emily laugh and talk about her treatment like it was an adventure, watching a family broken by fear slowly begin to heal through forgiveness. When it was time to go, Emily hugged her mother tight. I'm proud of you, Mummy. You made a mistake, but you fixed it. That's what matters. Sarah held her daughter, memorizing the feel of her arms, the smell of her hair, the sound of her voice. I love you, sweetheart, so much. I love you too. And when you come home, I'm going to be all better. We're both going to be better. It was a promise neither could guarantee, but it was hope. And sometimes hope is the only thing worth fighting for. Marcus walked out with Sarah and her guard escort. At the hospital entrance, a transport van waited to take her back to prison. Captain Reed, Sarah said, one last time. Thank you for seeing past the traitor to the person who was still in there. Thank you for proving that person existed, Marcus replied. He watched the van drive away, then walked back to his car. Tomorrow, he'd return to duty at the tower. The crown jewels would gleam under their lights, untouched, secure, eternal. Tourists would press their faces to the glass, marveling at the history, the wealth, the tradition. But Marcus would remember something else. He'd remember that the most valuable thing the crown possessed wasn't jewels. It was people. People like Sarah who made mistakes but found the courage to choose right when it mattered most. People like Emily who forgave without hesitation. People like Jenkins and the other guards who donated money without question because one of their own needed help. That was the real crown. Not metal and stones, but human compassion in the face of fear. Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from Jenkins. Morning briefing at 0600. We've updated protocols after the incident. Also, the fundraiser for Emily hit £4 million. We're covered for her entire treatment plan plus college fund. Marcus smiled. The guard took care of its own, even the ones who fell. Especially the ones who fell. He drove home as dawn broke over London, the tower's ancient stones catching the first light of morning. The crown jewels were safe. The traitor was caught. The network was dismantled. But more than that, a little girl would live. A mother would have a chance at redemption. And a guard who'd spent 17 years protecting. Symbols learned that sometimes the greatest act of protection is offering mercy. The city woke around him. Millions of people starting their days unaware of the drama that had unfolded in the tower's depths. The newspapers would report the attempted theft. The security review would be extensive. Changes would be made, but some things wouldn't make the papers. Like how one man's refusal to look away saved more than jewels. Like how a mother's last-second choice taught her daughter the meaning of courage. Like how a community rallied around someone who'd betrayed them, because forgiveness is stronger than judgment. These were the real treasures. The ones that couldn't be stolen, couldn't be weighed in carats or valued in pounds. The ones that made the oath worth taking, the uniform worth wearing, the long nights worth enduring. Marcus pulled into his driveway as his daughter stepped out to greet him, her smile bright in the morning sun. He hugged her tight, grateful for her health, for this moment, for the choice Sarah had made that preserved something more valuable than any crown. The jewels would endure for centuries, but compassion, courage, and redemption, these were the things that made those centuries worth protecting. And in a hospital room across London, a little girl wearing a colorful scarf clutched a teddy bear in a guard's uniform and dreamed of the day her mother came home. Because sometimes the greatest heist isn't stealing what's precious. It's stealing back the future from despair. That's what made Marcus Reed's story worth telling. Not because he caught a thief, but because he saved a family, and in doing so, proved that honor isn't about perfection. It's about standing up when you fall, about choosing right when choosing wrong would be easier, about seeing the person beneath the mistake. The crown jewels were safe, but more importantly, the values they represent, duty, honor, mercy, were alive in the people who protected them, and that was worth more than all the diamonds in the world.